Technology-based ventures often contemplate structure number one, make-sell business model. However, they use value-creating and value-capturing add-ons to nuance their business model. Consider how Nowy Energy, a startup from Delft University making sensors, reflects on its business model.
There's really two different possibilities. So you can simply sell the product as most sensors do, and that makes sense for a lot of companies. But the problem you still have there is that there's a big upfront investment. So if you want to deploy 5,000 or 10,000 sensors in a big office building, that it's still quite a significant investment for them, because maybe those sensors will be 40, 50 euros. So there is a new kind of trend going on, but this is still very, very sort of early stage, which is more subscription or lease based, where you're simply offering data. And you say, well, we handle the entire everything attached to that, and we just guarantee you get the data you need. Because actually nobody wants sensors. Sensors themselves are not interesting. They want the data that the sensors generate, because that's what is helping them control their buildings better. So in that sense, we can completely take away that part for them and simply say, all right, you pay €2 per room, for example, and we'll give you all the data you need. So that's a really different model. But this is still quite a new proposition in that market. So right now we are testing ourselves on what traction that is generating and what people like about it or they don't like.
In this fragment, both main options they consider represent structure number one, make-sell business model. In option one, they sell the product, sensors, and get paid per bulk of sensors, for example for 500 items. In option two, they sell the data from sensors as a service and get paid through repeated payments by means of a subscription or lease. In the former case, the venture retains ownership over the sensors, and in the latter case, the ownership can be transferred to the customer after a certain period of time. It's also important to make conscious choices about what the venture does not want to offer. In this case, it's the decision on selling the data, instead of also selling the algorithms that are necessary for analyzing the data.
What we really offer is the data. So we simply say you get a web API there, you can access all the data you want, and from there on out, it's another company that specializes in doing that. So we really try to stay close to what our core strength is, which is the technology development and not necessarily development of algorithms and these things.
Now let's listen to Henk Arns, the founder of TU Eindhoven venture Snowcom, as he reflects on the same two options.
When I thought about what my business model should be, the most logical thing for equipment is like selling it. And another aspect, other possibility would be in order to make a lease. However, the customer always determines what would be the most beneficial way, like a direct sale or a lease. And in my position, a direct sale was the most beneficial one, because that was the preference of an airport. And later on, I found out that some other airports wanted to have it via a different way, via lease. Well, then you think of a different way, and then you also offer lease, and you make that work. So the market tells you what your business model should be.
So those main two options are indeed sell the product versus lease the product. But what is another frequently used alternative?
Besides a direct sale and a lease, you could also think about other possibilities of making your business model work. So a possibility would be like a service-based, of performance-based fee. But in my field of business, that was not going to work in Europe, because that's not the way my customers would like to have it. But there was one part of the world where they do have like a performance-based business model. I know, for example, in the United States, contractors get paid in order to clean the snow, and they just get paid per inch of snow. So, and then of this fee, they need to perform the work. But then you're not an original equipment manufacturer, as I am, but then you are a contractor, and you need to have the equipment in your company, and you need to have a lot of people to perform the work. So that would be like a completely different business model, and wouldn't work for me as a startup. So we are a technology firm, and not a contractor. So when I thought about this business model, I concluded very quickly that it wouldn't work for us.
This alternative uses performance-based pricing, in this case getting paid per inch of snow harvested at the airport. Please note that it's still the same structure number 1, yet with a different combination of value creating and value capturing add-ons. Metrics used for the performance-based business models, like this one, are extremely important and context-dependent. Consider TU Eindhoven venture BitSensor and how its co-founder Ruben van Vreeland explains which different metrics for pricing they considered for their unique security-as-a-service business model.
Yeah, we were thinking about like pricing it per hack, per successful attack, or per attack that you got on your application, on how many hours we save, like the analyst, like analyzing these events, like before, after the breach, or do specific pricing on if a company is hacked and you only have logs available, price on that, price per gigabyte. There's so many ways you can price it. But the most transparent one that we saw is per application instance. And now, like if you're scaling a company, like you want to like stick with it for a while and just like build a company around that. So currently it's like per application instance.
They also tested those different pricing metrics. So what did they learn from that?
We tested out like pricing it per hack. And then per successful hack, we tested it. We tested like per gigabyte, how many gigabytes of data you put into the application. We tested like, okay, how many analysts do you have in a company who are using BitSensor in their dashboard? And then we figured out like this pricing is really flexible, so it can be €0 in 1 month, and then the next month you pay like 50,000 euros to BitSensor. And it turns out that the people who buy our product don't like this flexibility in pricing. They like to know, okay, for this year we'll spend this and next year I'll spend that on BitSensor. And also don't like that they can change, if, for example, the per hack pricing. The feedback that we got is like, okay, so you hack us now, you hack us 100 times, and then we pay you 100 times. And it's unfair because they can't know that we are behind that. And so we have to fight for the same goal. And so like pricing per application instance in the end was a metric that everybody knew in the business. That was scalable. So if somebody had like double the amount of application instances, they would pay double the amount, get a little bit of discount. But like that's roughly how we can scale in an organization. And it's really, you can foresee like the growth of the application instances. It's really correlated to the growth of users with the application. And so like it's a metric that really like feels safe for them.
Some technology-based ventures have a long time to market and/or are involved in highly regulated markets, such as the medical or biotech market. An important question for these ventures is, how do you generate enough revenues early on?
How can we create revenue in a very early phase? Because this is medical technology, it takes some time before you are allowed to sell it to a hospital. So we had to find a different route. And so we identified the preclinical market and the research market as our first target group. So we started selling products to researchers, and these researchers were interested in being able to create an ultrasound contrast agent to do all kinds of tests. So they are developing new medical procedures, new imaging algorithms to improve ultrasound. Also, there are researchers that are working on the next generation ultrasound contrast agents, where an ultrasound contrast agent is actually loaded with a medicine. So that means that you can see where the medicine is in the body. And at the same time, when it arrives at the right location, you can release the drug. And that is all new research. At the moment, it's still in the research field. But we have the technology to produce these products. So that was for us a way to, so what we are doing, we are serving our first customers with a product that they can make, these new agents. It generates revenue for us, At the same time, we learn from our users, we get feedback to speed up the development towards the medical market.